Hi, my name is Natalie Lowell, and I'm going to be giving my presentation on GIT335. My project is Cyberthreats. I'm going to go ahead and start the slideshow. So, we're going to be going over what are cyberthreats and how to deal with them. This has been a very applicable project for me because I have so many problems with my computer. I never know what to do with it. I get frustrated when people tell me it's spyware, whateverware, and I have no idea what they're talking about. So I have actually learned a lot in this project, and I hope you will too. So, when we're talking about cyber threats, we are usually dealing with about 5 different cases, all brought about by these people called cyber intruders. The first type of cyber intruder is a spy. A spy is somebody who intrudes into your computer or your network and looks at what you're doing. Usually, as we discussed in class, this can be as innocent as just something for marketing. But sometimes it can be something a little bit more. The next thing we're going to talk about are hackers. Hackers are people that get into your computer, as described in class, and change some of your settings. Third kind of cyber intruder we're going to talk about is a thief. A thief not only looks at your information, like a spy, but will steal it. The fourth kind of cyber intruder would be just a troll. A troll is somebody that just is out to upset you. And lastly, we have a predator, an online sexual predator. So to start, we're going to talk about a troll. I picked this picture because I thought it pretty much explained what a troll does. A troll is just out to be dumb and just upset you. Now, this might seem innocent enough, because if you just ignore them, they'll go away, but sometimes they get a little bit out of hand. A lot of times you'll find these trolls on online forums. Now I take for example an online forum called Guy Online. Guy Online had to deal with so many trolls in so many different levels that they actually had to add something to their terms of service. As you can see here, Guy Online says that a troll very well may just be out to have a good time, just to upset people, but there are certain times that a troll crosses the line and will have to either be blocked or will have to be reported to the authorities. Now, not all of us get on online forums, but we do deal with trolls in one sense or another, but luckily enough we can take the same kind of precautions that Guy Online does. We can block the person, or we can just report them to the authorities if they get too out of hand. Next, we're going to talk about the spies. Spies are kind of like in this picture, somebody that might as well be looking over your shoulder, looking at what you're doing. Now, at first, I did agree with what we said in the presentation, or in our online lecture in class, that really, it's just marketing stuff. It's nothing personal. Actually, when my husband and I were shopping for engagement rings, we were shopping online, and I had advertisements for engagement rings for about a year and a half after we even got married. They were always on the side of my window, whatever website I was at, usually Facebook, always had those things. And the only thing I could think of was, well, maybe it could be upsetting if the spyware found that I was looking for things for a funeral arrangement. I would probably not like to see lots of commercials for a funeral arrangement years after a loved one passed away. But that's the only thing I could think of when I started this project. Upon doing a little bit more research, and you'll laugh because I got this from surfnetkids.com, but sometimes I need something really simplified to understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Surfnet Kids actually talked about how spyware can be dangerous. Obviously, you don't always want someone looking over your shoulder because there is some personal information that is harmful for them to understand. There's a reason why personal information is personal. Take, for example, personally, I always shop online. I shop online, I pay my bills online. Most things are done online with my credit card. And the spyware can take that information from you and move into the next category of stealing it, which we'll go over in a little bit. Now, in order to avoid this, we can get a firewall. Now, I thought this picture was funny because my cat is kind of like a firewall. He controls what kind of data goes in and out of the computer. He's just a thug. But if you don't know how to deal with firewalls, you can get something that takes care of the spyware for you. This is called Spyware Doctor. I have this on my computer, and I just click on it, I tell it to clean my computer, and it takes care of everything else, and it's so nice. Now, we're going to go into actually hackers before we go into the thieves. This is a really cool comic that I found on whopeoplebot.com. It kind of describes accurately how I viewed hackers. It says here, hackers briefly took down the website of the CIA yesterday. But people here, someone hacked into the computers of the CIA. Well, computer experts here, someone tore down a poster hung up by the CIA. And this made me laugh because before I took this class, I remember, I think it was last semester or the semester before, there was a student or students that got into ASU's website and changed it around. Innocent enough, they just changed the front of it, but at first I was really scared, thinking, oh my gosh, they took all my information, they dropped all my classes, they messed with my transcript. But really, all they did is what the comic said. They changed the face of the website. I tried to make it a little bit smaller because I know some of the words are a little bit crude, but just to give you an idea. Sometimes hackers can be a little bit more malicious. I believe it was just last semester I was taking some online classes and Blackboard went down right when the finals were due online. And we got some email notifications from ASU several times actually that there was a DOS attack, a denial of service. And I also got this picture from Microsoft because I thought it was pretty good. So you have here an attacker, which would be, in this case, the hacker. They use their computer to get a hold of another computer, tell a bunch of other computers to send a lot of information to, in this case, Blackboard. So Blackboard gets overwhelmed and can't take any more information. Now this happened right when finals came, so it was good. Probably the hacker didn't want to take any classes. But in this case, it affected all of us. Some of us only had a certain amount of time we could take the class. The reason why we're taking online classes, or there was only a certain time we could take the test, so we had to redo our schedules. It was just a mess. So that's another example of another more malicious thing a hacker can do. Obviously, there are, on a grander scale, things that are way worse they could do, but these are just examples of things that apply to myself as a student. So how do you know if you have a virus? Visually had a really cool list of things you can do to see if you have a virus in your computer. The first thing, obviously, is your computer runs really slow. Second thing is things don't respond when you click on them. Third is your computer will reboot, which means it turns off and on again. It freezes or it crashes unexpectedly. 4, your firewall or your antiviruses are disabled all of a sudden, which would be important to note because it would make sense that a virus was programmed to keep those things at bay so it could keep doing its work. 5, you can't access different drives on your computer, like your CD drive. I actually didn't know that. And also number 6, I didn't know that you can't print. I had no idea that a virus would affect your auxiliary items like your printer and whatnot. But I guess whatever. That's a sign. 7, you get pop-up saying that you have a virus and you can't close them. I actually had a neighbor who I believe had something along these lines. He was downloading things for whatever he was downloading for work, and then he got a little pop-up on the lower right-hand side of his computer that said, oh, you have a virus, click here and we'll take care of it for you. And it was a company that he actually called, and they stepped him through the process, and they said they helped him. But it turns out his computer was even worse shape after that. So he went to an official Apple store, and they told him, hey, you know what? So that ad that said you had a virus was actually a lie. That was a dishonest company that wanted to take your money and put a virus on your computer to steal your your billing information on top of that. So there's that. Also, we have the pop-ups, which I'm very familiar with. Lots of pop-ups when you have viruses. 9, you can't download things you want, and 10, lost icons on your desktop, which was a surprise to me because just a month ago I was helping my mom work on some family history project. We were putting a lot of things on her desktop in a folder, and unfortunately enough, it disappeared a few weeks ago. And we just assumed that maybe one of her grandkids deleted it on accident or whatever, but I think it would make more sense that that's the case because her computer has been going pretty slow lately. So that's good to know. So I had to go fix it. So, Microsoft, right after it gave you this 10-point countdown, or of how to tell about your computer being sick, they said that you can go to this link and it'll tell you how to fix it. Now, I would be afraid to do that on my own because I couldn't even download Chrome without totally messing up my computer. So, if you're like me, you just go to Geek Squad and you make them take care of it. Sure, it's destroy it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go into are the online predators. As you can see in the background here, predators thrive in social media. I like this quote here that says, "A picture is worth 1,000 words" by Napoleon because it kind of describes the first thing I learned when I was delving into this. I actually learned quite a bit. I thought I knew everything there was to know about online predators, but I was surprised to know just how little I didn't know. For example, did you know that if you have a picture on Facebook and you tag yourself and maybe a friend in it, even though your profile is on private, that person can share it with who knows who, and that person will be able to find you. Also, did you know that even if you just post a picture without any tags in it, they can find out a lot about you? Like, for example, if you have a daughter that plays sports, obvious giveaway, oh, I like this girl. She plays volleyball at this school. I am going to go as a public, person, just a public person, and I'm going to go sit in the bleachers and I'm going to find out more about her. It's kind of scary when you think about it, but yeah, a picture really does speak 1,000 words, and especially to an unwanted crowd. So speaking of Facebook, that's really the only social media I have any kind of experience with. So I'm going to kind of focus the remainder of my presentation on things related to Facebook and cyber predators. It goes. Okay, backtrack. So that picture we just saw was an example of a crew of people that go around getting permission from parents to get a hold of the parent's child to see if they can't convince them to do something dangerous with a stranger. And this crew has been around for a while. They are constantly uploading videos of tricking a teenager to get into an unmarked van and then acting like they're kidnapping her, and then of course her mom is one of the people that's masked and she yells at the teenager, or they get a teenage boy, a 13-year-old, to go into a stranger's house and those two men attack him, posing as pedophiles, and then the mom comes out from a room from behind the house and starts yelling at the son. And it's just amazing how many things will happen, especially in one instance. There was a boy that watched this same girl I told you on YouTube getting tricked by the same crew to get into this unmarked van. Not a week later, the parents of this 13-year-old boy gave this crew permission to contact their 13-year-old son, and they did the exact same thing, the exact same van. They parked it in front of the 13-year-old boy's house when his parents were gone. He got out of the house and actually got into the van. And they sped away with him. He was scared, tried to kick. He couldn't get away. They drove down for a little bit. They totally had him under control, and all of a sudden his dad uncovered his head. He's like, "What is wrong with you? You think just because you're a boy won't happen to you?" It was amazing. So I highly recommend going back to watch that video. But moving on. According to Facebook, there's this thing called a graph search, which I'm sure you were reading about as I kind of went on that spiel about the video. But basically, predators can search you based on your interests and things you have on your Facebook, such as your birthday. And this is very dangerous because, as Facebook says, they use that somehow. They kind of use that as an in to get into talking to you, and they know how to adjust their age and their interests to get your attention. So, About.com depicted the scenario below. I'm not going to read it, but I'll kind of just sum it up for you. It talks about this thing called an event that you can attend on Facebook. Now, an event is when somebody posts, "Hey, this thing is going to happen at this place at this time," and they invite all their friends, and then their friends invite their friends, or your friends will be able to see that you're attending the event, and it's just this big old crazy web. And they have people attending, people invited, people not attending. And you can just click on who's attending, and you can see the pictures and the names of people that are going to be attending. So this is an example of a hypothetical scenario of a girl who joins a group and then is stalked by an online predator. And it just talks about how easy it is for him to just, learn about her. She knows where she's going to be and when. He knows who she's going to be with, and he can just find out a lot about her. He found out where she worked, what her shift was, and at the end, he has her cell phone number. It's a scary thought, and it should be, as Hardcastle says. You don't ever think it's going to happen to you or your kids, but, even as that video shows that I showed you before, it can happen to anybody. Now, I'm sure you've heard of catfishing, as I have, but there's also something called grooming. Grooming is kind of like catfishing, except the predator focuses on the needs or the desires, the wants of the prey. For example, if the predator's prey feels lonely, they feel underappreciated, whatever have you, the predator will fulfill those needs. So much to the fact that the prey feels like the predator is needed. So they rely on the predator. And this is kind of scary because in this hypothetical scenario by Gilkerson's, as you can see in the bottom there, bottom right hand corner, It starts out by talking about this girl being in a really bad situation. She has to get into the trunk of a car. She goes to the guy's house. She is scared, and over the next few days she's terrorized. She's abused horribly. And it says in the next paragraph, it didn't start out that way. You know, she thought she was just talking to another 14-year-old red-haired girl, as you can see. And that red-haired girl introduced her to a guy named John. And, you know, he fulfilled all of her needs as an insecure teenager, and he was respectful, and she loved him, and she found out the hardest way, as Gilkinson says, sometimes the seemingly nicest people are the cruelest underneath. And it's a very scary thought, but it happens. Going on, so I talked about how online predators can trap girls, can trap boys, but also they tend to trap adults. And I was actually kind of surprised to read about this. You'll see in my works cited all of the different scenarios and stories and whatnot if you want more information. But most of what I've read was talking about how predators will target adults who are somehow unhappy, somehow lonely. They could be married and not in a good relationship or wanting something more exciting, or they could be just single looking for something. Whatever the situation, they're wanting for something. So the predator will single out that adult prey and get them to trust them. And once the prey trusts the predator will send the predator pictures and, you know, suggestive pictures, suggestive text, sexting, as we went over in class, and the predator will keep those things. And should the prey ever want out of the relationship, the predator can keep that prey in control by saying, hey, if you try to get away from me and don't do what I say, I'm going to show your wife or your husband these pictures you sent me and all the conversations. Or if they're single, I'll post them on the internet. I'll show them to your boss. Anything. And they'll use that as blackmail to keep these adults trapped. So, after learning all this, you might think, well, the internet's everywhere. Can't really avoid it. Might as well just hide under a rock, right? Of course not. What not to do. If you're extremely scared, or if you're, you know, if you have a minor you're trying to protect, make sure that they do not add locations and tags to their pictures, even if their profile is on private. Whatever you post on the internet is not private. I learned this from almost all of my instructors. They said don't post anything on the internet, don't text anything, don't take any picture unless you're okay with the whole world knowing it. Once it's digitized, it is no longer yours to control. Second, don't let your children post their birthdays on social media to get away from that whole graphing thing we're talking about. And don't let them list their interests. If their friends know their interests, if they don't, they can ask them at school. What to do? If you really want to remind your friends when the birthday is, have your kids get a birthday app. I have a picture here on the right of one example of one I just found on Google. You can also have your kids RSVP to events in person or over the phone. And never again tag a picture with a full name or a Facebook name. And that's that. And I learned a lot from this presentation. I learned a lot of stuff that I thought I knew. I realized I really didn't know a lot about certain cyber intruders, and I'm thankful I knew this. I feel like I'm a lot more prepared now to deal with my computer when it's being dumb, and I feel a lot more prepared to help my kids get through their teenhood and their childhood safely. Thank you.